الحمد لله وكفى والصلاة والسلام على النبي المصطفى سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my dear brothers and sisters. Welcome to the Jewels from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And our topic for tonight is a question that I will start with. I will start with a question. Do you want to be with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Jannah? Do you want to be with the Prophet of Allah, the last Prophet of Allah, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Jannah? Naam. So this is our topic for tonight. If you want to be with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Jannah, do what he has advised us to do, inshallah. Naam. عن سهل بن سعد رضي الله عنه قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أنا وكافل اليتيم في الجنة هكذا وأشار بالسبابة والوسطى وفرج بينهما رواه البخاري. This hadith was narrated by Sahl ibn Sa'ad radiallahu anhuma. He says that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said that أنا وكافل اليتيم كهاتين في الجنة, that I and the person who looks after an orphan will be in Jannah. هكذا وأشار بالسبابة والوسطى. Now, and he pointed with his two, with the index and the middle finger, meaning the two close fingers. Now, meaning will be with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, close to him, like how these two fingers are so close to one another. Now, وَفَرَّجَ بَيْنَهُمَا, and he just split the two fingers together just to make a space between the two, to say the manzila, the level of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam will be higher. Why? Because he's the Nabi of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but you'll be close to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Why? Because of the mere fact that you used to take care of orphans. Now, so now, who is a yatim? Who is an orphan? Who is an orphan? Generally speaking, an orphan is the person who has lost his father or his mother, or both of them, has lost both parents. Now, if we are going to look at the general meaning of an orphan, is the person who has lost his father, or the person who has lost his mother, or he has lost both of them. But according to Sharia, an orphan is that child who has lost only his father, and he will be considered as an orphan until he attains puberty, until he becomes a baligh. Once he is baligh, now, the rule of him becoming an orphan, it falls off. He's no longer an orphan. Why? Because now he can try to stand on his own. Now, there's so many virtues of, looking after an orphan. Before I speak about the virtues of looking after an orphan, why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or why did a yatim called yatim? Now, لماذا سمي اليتيم يتيما? A yatim was called yatim. Why? Because the word yatim comes from yutmun, is derived from the word yutmun. The root word is yutmun. And what is yutmun? In Arabic, yutmun huwa الشيء المغفول, الشيء المغفول. It is something neglected, something that has been neglected. So a child that once had a father and a mother, now because he has lost both of them, or he has lost a father according to Sharia, now, so there is a possibility, or in some conditions, in some instances, you will find that the child will be neglected by people. Now, so he is called yatim because in some instances that child is neglected. Now, he does not have a father, he does not have a mother, so now he needs someone else to play that role of a father and mother. is where me and you come in. Now, we come in support of the child. So we need to support him financially in order for him to become independent. So when it comes to education, we should support him with his education. We should support him with guidance, to guide him in order for him to know or differentiate between halal and haram. Because if he is neglected, he will grow up as a jahil, as an ignorant child, ignorant person. He will not know how to differentiate between halal and haram. He will not know who is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he needs a muallim, a teacher. He needs somebody to guide him. He needs someone to give him a shelter in order for him to hide his head, to have a roof on his head. And he needs somebody to support him with his food, to support him with his clothing. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says regarding Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Alam yajidika yatiman fa'awa. Alam yajidika yatiman fa'awa. Did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not find you as yatim, as an orphan? Fa'awa. And he gave you a shelter. Remember Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, when he was born, his father was already dead, had already passed away. He did not see his father. He never met his father. He did not know his father, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And at the age of 6, his mother passed away. So now he was an orphan of a father and a mother. Now, so who took care of him was his grandfather Abdul Muttalib. Abdul Muttalib, he took care of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam for a period of 2 years until the age of 8. When he was 8 years old, the grandfather of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam passed away. He became now an orphan of a father, mother, and also grandfather, the one who used to take care of him. So his uncle Abu Talib, he took care of him from the age of 8 until he was a man. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Now, so what was the hikmah behind Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam being made a yatim? Why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam an orphan? Scholars write that one of the reasons was, for Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam to have compassion towards other yatims, other orphans. Now, that he will be able to look after other orphans like him because he was once an orphan. Allahu Akbar. And other scholars are saying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam an orphan, and he has left him for himself. Meaning, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam for himself. And who taught Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam? In the hadith, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, Addabani Rabbi fa ahsana ta'adibi. Allahu Akbar. That my Lord, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, has taught me, has made my tarbiyah. Fa ahsana ta'adibi, and he taught me well. Allahu Akbar. And one of the hikmah, one of the wisdoms, the reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam an orphan was, as a child, if the child starts crying, if someone, troubles the child, and the child, will call the father, oh father, Abi, my father, my father. And sometimes when he's troubled on the street, he will say, I am going to report you to my father. I'm going to report you to my father. So his father becomes what? A support to him. He becomes a support towards him. But Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not want him to call Abi. He wanted him to call Rabbi, my Allah, my Lord, my Lord. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was the one who stood by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He gave him strength. He taught him, Alam yajidika yatiman fa'awa. Did Allah not find you as a yatim, as an orphan? Fa'awa, and He gave you shelter through the grandfather, through the uncle. وَوَجَدَكَ ضَالًّا فَهَدَى. Did He not find you wandering about, looking and searching for guidance? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guided you. So this means that a yatim needs guidance, needs someone to guide him towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He needs a muallim, he needs a teacher, he needs somebody who will be able to teach him what is halal and what is haram in order for him to be able to differentiate between the two. Alam yajidika yatiman fa'awa ووجدك ضالا فهدى ووجدك عائلا فأغنى. And He found you as an ailan, a needy, a poor, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sustained you. And sustained you with what? With halal rizq, wholesome food from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's what some of the hikmah, the wisdom why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, a yatim, an orphan. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he had so much affection and so much love. He was so much close to those people to those children that were orphan. And he said, Ana wa kafilul yatimi kahataini fil jannah. I and the one who looks after a yatim, after an orphan, will be together, means so close to one another in Jannah. Inshallah, we'll take a short break. And when we come back, inshallah, we will carry on and continue speaking about the virtues of looking after an orphan. See you after this. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back, and we are discussing a yatim, the virtues of looking after an orphan. Now, an orphan is somebody who longs, for a father. Allahu Akbar. Imagine an orphan. Sometimes he will look at the person, at the other children, in the company of their parents, the father, the mother. You see them playing together. So he starts having that feeling in his heart, and the wish that I wish I had a father so he could play with me. I wish I had a mother, who would be so close and talk to me. Allahu Akbar. So for you who is able to look after an orphan, wallahi, there's so many virtues. The virtue number one is you will enter Jannah. This hadith in which Rasulullah SAW said, Ana wa kafilul yatimi fil Jannah. It means that you will enter Jannah for looking after an orphan. Allahu Akbar. Number two, you'll be close to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You'll be close to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the master of all the Anbiya alayhi salatu wa taslim. You'll be close to him. He was a yatim himself. He was an orphan. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, gave him guidance. Allahu Akbar. And He gave him a shelter through his grandfather and his uncle. He gave him, rizq, halal, wholesome sustenance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that child who does not have a father and the child who does not have a mother needs you, needs your support. Is where you come in, supporting him, giving him a shelter, because if he does not have a shelter, what will happen to him? He will wander the streets. He will stay on the streets. Now, if you do not give him education, what will happen? He will remain a jahil, an ignorant child. He will not know who is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He will not be able to take care of himself. Now, why? Because you did not teach him, you did not become a muallim towards him. Now, and if you do not give him food, what is he going to become? He will become a beggar. And he becomes a beggar, troubling people, asking from one person to another. Why? Because he lacks food. So look after him. You become a father to that child who is an orphan. You become a mother to the child who is an orphan. In return, you will enter Jannah. In return, you will be so close to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now, there's so many verses in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about, looking after the orphans. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ مَاذَا يُنْفِقُونَ O Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, they're asking you with regarding to where should they spend their wealth? Where should they spend their money? Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قُلْ مَا أَنفَقْتُم مِّنْ خَيْرٍ Whatever good you spend, فَلِلْوَالِدَيْنِ Number one, it should go to your parents. Spend on your parents. Nowadays, we neglect our parents as well. Not only the orphan child, even our parents, we neglect them. We do not spend on our parents. We do not respect them. We do not honor them. Now, we give preference to other people than our own parents. Some will give preference, to their wives over their parents. Some will give preference to their friends over their parents. This is called uququl walidain. Now, uququl walidain is to be disrespectful towards your parents. And this is a great sin, and it is punishable in akhirah, in dunya as well as in akhirah, by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save us. Now, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, whatever good you are going to spend, whatever money you have and you want to spend, number one, you should spend on your both parents, falil walidain, wal aqrabin, and spend on your close relatives. Now, close relatives like your brothers, your sisters, your uncles, your aunties, your grandparents, spend on them. Now, spend on them. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to bless you. He's going to put barakah in your wealth as well. Now, wal yatama, and he says you must spend on the yatama, on the orphans. Spend on them. Spend towards their education. Spend towards their food. Spend towards their shelter. Spend towards their clothing. You become like a father, to them. Qatada, he said, Qatada rahmahullah, he said that you should be kun aban lil yatim. You should be like a father to yatim and be good to him. Now, be like a father to him and be good to him. Now, so spend on yatim. Allahu Akbar. In order for him not to be or to feel neglected, not to feel alone, not to feel lonely. Spend on him. Wal yatama wal masakin, and also spend on the poor people. Wabin sabil, and on the travelers. Now, and also for treating well, an orphan, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَأَمَّا الْيَتِيمَ فَلَا تَقْهَرْ. Now, فَأَمَّا الْيَتِيمَ فَلَا تَقْهَرْ, أي لَا تُسِيءُ مُعَامَلَتَهُ. Now, as for an orphan, you should not ill-treat him. You should treat him well. Sometimes you find that the orphan his parents died and left him with wealth. And because he's still a child, you as an uncle, you come and with intention of looking after him. So you must be very much careful with regarding to how you spend the inheritance of that child, of that orphan. Now, you should not misuse it. What you have to do is to increase it. You can be the means for that wealth to increase, meaning you can invest it, in business until that child, grows up and he is able to look after his own wealth. Then you can pass it over to him. Now, so by doing that, you have done a lot. You have made a difference in his life, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to reward you. He's going to reward you. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ يَأْكُلُونَ أَمْوَالَ الْيَتَامَى. Indeed, those who eat the wealth of orphans unjustly, إنما يأكلون في بطونهم نارا. They are eating fire. They are consuming fire in their bellies, in their stomach. Nam. وَسَيَصْلَوْنَ سَعِيرًا. And they shall enter سَعِيرًا, fire of Jahannam. Nam. To those who unjustly misuse or eat the wealth of orphans, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is promising them a punishment in Jahannam. Now, if the child has been left with wealth, what is your responsibility as his guardian is to look after his wealth. From his wealth, you should educate him. From his wealth, you must give him a shelter. From his wealth, let him have clothing, let him eat from his wealth. But at the same time, you must do justice, not to just make israf, wasting his wealth, but you must try to grow it. Now, try to grow it in order for him, when he has now grown up, inshallah, he will grow up, inshallah, having wealth which will make him independent. And also, he will be able to look after the needy people or other aitam, other orphans. Now, you should not misuse the wealth of, the orphan. So there are so many other verses of the Holy Quran. But what we have to do is to understand the position of an orphan, in our society. If you know someone who is an orphan and you are able to look after him, go and take care of him. By doing that, inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will grant you Jannah, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will grant you the opportunity to be close to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was an orphan himself. He did not know his father. He lost his mother at the age of 6. He lost his grandfather at the age of 8, and he was in the care of his uncle. Nam. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam once said, somebody came and complained to him with regarding to the hardness, of his heart, that my heart is so hard. I feel that my heart is so hard. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, you must feed the poor, feed the hungry people. Now, feed hungry people. This is number one. If you want your heart to be soft, you must feed the poor people. Number two, you should pass your hand, with that feeling of mercy on the head of an orphan. By doing that, inshallah, as you're passing your head with the feeling of mercy on this child that does not have a father, this child that does not have a mother, this child that needs a shelter, needs support from everybody, this neglected child. So if you pass your hand on his head with this feeling of rahmah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will, soften your heart and will make your heart to be soft. And also, he will grant you so many blessings, so many rewards. And he will make it such that one day when you are passed on, when you're no longer in this dunya, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make it such that he will send someone to look after your children. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for guidance. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for his rahmah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep us, closer to him. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep on giving us opportunities to look after those in need, that, to put a smile on their faces, that when we come on the day of Qiyamah, inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will also put a smile on our faces until we meet again. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.